I see that you used the word accurate in one of your assignments for this class. What exactly do you think that word means? When I hear the word accurate, I'll tell you what I think it means. I think it means hitting a target. So we speak of a rifle as being accurate if it consistently and correctly hits the target. But I don't think you were talking about rifles or pistols or arrows or spears. Did you mean that something was measured precisely, measured reliably, measured validly, or that a sample was representative, or that a theory was useful, or that a quotation was accurate? What exactly did you mean? If we look at this watch and we say that it's accurate, do we mean that it measures time down to the second, or do we mean that it measures the actual time, or both? Now, if you mean that something measured precisely, don't say that the data were accurate. Say that the data were measured precisely. For example, if we use something like a continuous ratio scale. Let's take a look at this milestone. On the right, it measures in miles, but on the left, it also measures in yards. That measurement would be more precise. Even more precise would be a tape measure that would measure things down to the fraction of an inch. Even more precise would be a micrometer. This analog scale measures weight, but a digital scale would be more precise. Here we see an estimate, a prediction, of where a hurricane is going to hit by the location and by the hour. It would be more precise if we were able to say exactly where, within feet or yards, and the exact time within minutes. What do we mean by reliability? We mean consistency of measurement. So instead of saying that the data were accurate, say that the data were measured reliably, or that the data were reliable. If we look, for example, at this particular steel tape measure, it's going to measure consistently. But imagine that tape measure was made out of rubber that could stretch. That would not give us consistent measurements. It would not be reliable. Let's talk about validity. Does this watch tell us the actual time? If so, it measures what it is supposed to measure. It is valid. So don't say that the data were accurate. Say that the data were measured validly. The data were valid. Especially in clinical psychology and psychiatry. Here's what we're talking about. We're talking about hitting the target in terms of getting the diagnosis correct. If the patients that we say have the disorder actually have the disorder, those are true positives. And if the patients that we say don't have the disorder or actually don't have the disorder, those are the true negatives. Diagnostic errors can be where these two situations do not match, where we claim that a patient has a disorder when actually the patient does not, or when we fail to recognize an existing disorder, a false negative. Don't use the word accurate to describe a theory. Albert Einstein gave us a useful theory. We were able to make nuclear reactors and nuclear weapons. Theories are useful. They're not accurate. Similarly, if we're talking about sampling, don't say that a sample was accurate. The mark of a good sample is that it is representative of the population. In this particular example, with the population on top and the sample on the bottom, we see that this particular sample is representative of the gray cases. Looks like it over-represents the black cases, includes too many of those in the sample, while it under-represents the white cases, because none of them are included in the sample. A representative sample would be representing the population in terms of the most important background variables, such as age, gender, and geography. Finally, don't call a quotation accurate. Do you mean that the quotation was a direct, complete quotation with no paraphrasing and no deletion? If so, call it that. So, please avoid using words like accurate, inaccurate, and accuracy in this class.